because you're interested in being a state officer yourself, which is pretty exciting. So we're excited to give you all a little bit more insight into the things we do on a weekly and a monthly basis and just in general. So we'll go ahead and kick it off with introductions. Hi, I'm Greta Shortreed, and I am proudly serving as your state president.
Hi everyone, my name is Alabia Prasad, and I'm serving you all as your state vice president.
Hey guys, I'm Prisha Potter, and I am serving you this year as your state secretary treasurer.
Hi, I'm Sydney Lecision, and I'm serving as the state reporter.
Hello, my name is Natalie Kuhn, and I'm serving as your state parliamentarian.
Hi, my name is Paige Lowing, and I'm serving as your Region 4 Vice President.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lucy Manzetti, and I'm serving as your Region 5 Vice President.
Hey, my name's Coco Counter, and I'm serving as your Region 7 Vice President.
Great. So quick overview of the things that we're going to be talking about today. We're just going to be running over some of the general expectations and duties of each of the officer positions. You should note that for two of the positions, the last two we're going to be talking about, parliamentarian is not an elected position, which Natalie can touch on a little bit more for us tonight, and region vice presidents should know that there are 7 different positions open for that. So be sure to note which region you belong to when you're looking at run for that position. All right, so I'll go ahead and start with me, and we can talk a little bit about some of the things that I do as president, which is a little bit different for me this year because I was secretary treasurer last year, so I did have a little bit of a switch up, even though I was able to observe some of the things that our past president had done, which definitely helped me a little bit just to know some of those things. The way I look at my role is general facilitation. I like to see myself as a point of contact on behalf of Wisconsin FBLA, as well as the point of contact between our state advisor and our team. So I oversee a lot of different responsibilities that our officers are responsible for, which means I'm certainly not directly managing them, but I frequently am checking in with other people. You'll see that one of the things I do weekly is review our accountability chart and progress on our program of work. And that's an action plan that we put together at the start of our term, just to lay out all the initiatives that we have planned for the year. And so I'll go ahead and I'll frequently review, are we staying up to date on those things? Are we getting them done? Because this is stuff that we're presenting to all of our members. So we want to make sure that we're producing it in a timely way. We're getting it out to them when it should be and in the state it should be in. And I'm frequently checking in with some of the officers. I want to make sure that they're all feeling good and that they're on top of their duties, which again, it's definitely different something I did last year. So I would say it's looking into the officer team is a little bit different from this position than some of the other ones, because rather than creating some of the answers, you kind of got to be the one to field through some of the questions that other people maybe have and be prepared to answer those. General other things are that I preside over all executive board meetings and our conferences, and this includes other calls too. So we do have a monthly conference call. The first Wednesday of every month is what we have it set at is this year, that we and all our advisors will hop on that call every night. And that's one of my monthly duties, is to create that conference call agenda, as well as check in at that point with our state advisor, Jen Jackson. I do a lot of communication with her just to put things like that together. So monthly we're updating and communicating between our officer team. So I'll go ahead and leave each of those every month. And whenever we have extra calls, things like our chapter chats or things tonight, I also am attending each of those just to give a quick hello on behalf of Wisconsin FBLA, things of that nature. Checking my email, that's a big one that I put down there for its own little weekly bullet point, because, you know, when I'm checking in between all the different state officers and our state advisor, or I get occasional notices from our Wisconsin FBLA Foundation, and things like chapter visit requests and things like that. A lot of that stuff tends to come through my email, and so I'm always checking that out. And president overall just ends up being sort of a position about organizing things and facilitating those different initiatives that we have set up to go on throughout the year. This all comes out to be about, I would say, 2 hours on a lighter week for me, just for the state position in particular. And then sometimes when we're doing things like upcoming conferences and we have things like that going on, it'll be about 5 or 6 hours on a busier week, but certainly manageable. I'll go ahead now and pass it off to Olavia to touch on her vice president position for you all.
So on a general basis, the vice president's role can be a little ambiguous or where there's not much to do on a regular basis, but as the year goes on, I'm always in charge of communicating with a March of Dimes representative and always communicating with our local chapters about any initiatives that the March of Dimes comes out with. And then also be in contact with our local chapters and especially our middle level members, since I'm in charge, or the VP is in charge of kind of helping out with their regionals. And I'm also constantly supporting our region VPs with their planning and also supporting our exec officers. And in the end, before my term is over, I have to help prepare the Wisconsin annual report with the assistance of the president. And then on a weekly basis, like I said before, always in communication with the March Dimes and our local chapters, both middle and high school. And then I'm also connecting and communicating with businesses, organizations, and universities for our future fair at our state leadership conference. And then on a monthly basis, I have to periodically check our social media chart to see if I need to complete any articles for our newsletters, and then also promote any specific FBLA initiatives. And also I'm in charge of helping create the accountability charge where I have a group of officers that I connect with periodically throughout the month to see if they're on track on any on anything that they need to complete. So approximately on a lighter week, it takes about 1 to 2 hours, and then on some busier weeks, it's 3 to 4 hours. And I will pass it on to Prashant.
So compared to some of the other state officer positions, I would say that secretary treasurer is probably one of the more open-ended and flexible ones. So generally, like, one of the biggest responsibilities that's assigned to me is to take notes at meetings. So whether this is our conference call every month or our program of work, I have to type that information up or just add to it. So that's kind of my biggest role. And at conferences and so on, I kind of read out the budget reports and the minutes if that needs to be read. So those are kind of like the main things that I do. But mostly my job revolves around supporting the other state officers with their initiatives. So there are a lot of projects that I can take on personally to kind of further on FBLA. And because I have the time to do that, the state officer typically tends to be the person that people go to for those types of things. So that's just generally kind of what I do. Weekly, I would say that I would secure sponsorships for SLC. So I've been reaching out to a couple businesses, emailing them, sending them letters, kind of just seeing whether or not they're going to respond back. Connecting with schools to start their FBLA chapters. That's another thing that all the officers do, but I also assist with that. And then checking your inbox for important emails. I have the notifications set to my phone, so that kind of just happens constantly whenever something pops up. And then monthly, like I said, I take notes at conference calls. I also assist with creating social media posts and WFEB articles, which is something that all officers do. And whenever events pop up, I help plan workshops. So I know that at WFLC this past week, if any of you attended the objective test workshop, Mason and I kind of put the whole thing together from scratch. So that was really cool. And so my hours per week typically reflect that too. Then you can see that I have 0 to 1 hours on lighter weeks, because some weeks I will just check my email and that's it. But then when I'm preparing for a workshop or a conference or something of that sort, it will tend to get quite a bit busier, 5 to 6 hours. And I'm going to pass it off to Sydney, our state reporter.
Hello, everyone. So as the reporter, I would say my 2 biggest roles are taking care of the social media and the Wisconsin FBLA e-bulletin, or the WFEB. So in the summer, I worked on putting together a schedule of all our social media posts and WFEB topics. So I had it month by month, and then under that I had the different posts that we're doing, when they need to be to me by, and who's gonna make the post, and then when it needs to be posted by. And also with that, there's like Meta Business Suite where I can schedule posts. So I can post each post as I get them and then schedule them so I don't have to be posting every day that I'm actually posting. And then I also format the Wisconsin FBLA e-bulletin and make sure to edit all the articles and put them in order. So I create like the title page, which I do on Adobe InDesign. And then I also prepare for workshops at conferences like Prisha was saying, and chapter chats. Weekly, I post on social media. I try to get all the posts for the week and post them on one day, and then just schedule them throughout the week. And then I make sure to edit the post before I send them out. And then I keep up with the accountability chart that Alabi and Greta have put together. And then I check for Wisconsin FBLA e-bulletin articles in my inbox to put them onto the document, so it's not so much at the end of the month. And then monthly things, I would say finalize the WFEB and send them to all advisors in Wisconsin. That depends on the month. So there's 4 different editions of the WFEB. So I'll only be doing that 4 times. And then I also fill out reports on our conference calls and attend the meeting. And then I contact officers if their topics for posting or for articles need clarification. So as this like dials down, some weeks I only have like 2 hours of posting and making emails. And then on busier weeks with conferences and workshops, it's more 3 to 5. And also the WFEB takes up a lot of time with editing, reading through everything, and making sure that's good to go. And I'll pass it on to Natalie.
All right, hello everyone. So with the position of parliamentarian, this is also a very open-ended position. Like we were discussing before, the parliamentarian is not an elected position, but rather an appointed position. So the parliamentarian takes a written objective test at state, and the highest score is appointed as parliamentarian. And so they serve as the official parliamentarian for all business and executive sessions of Wisconsin FBLA chapter, and like other state officers, a voting member of the executive board. And so weekly, I send correspondence via email, whether that's to local chapters or to other officers or to sponsors. And so just like all that constant email communication, like discussed before. And then planning workshops for various conferences. That's another thing that constantly keeps me busy, whether that's Fall Leadership Labs, WFLC, and then throughout the year, as well as chapter visits. I've done a few of those so far, and those workshops are very important for that. And then carrying out individual goals on the program of work. So because this position is very open-ended, I have the opportunity to pursue individual goals that are kind of outlined personally. So I know that I went in wanting to work with the Dress to Impress scholarships, and so I've been able to kind of focus on that in my state position, even though it's not directly involved in these specific goals, but I can add that in the program of work with that flexibility. And then monthly, I contribute articles to the WFEB and create social media posts, and then attend chapter visits as requested. So for hours a week, it's about 1 to 2 on lighter weeks, 3 to 4 on busier weeks, can be more, especially during conference time, but those are the main hours a week. And I'll pass it on to the region VPs.
Hello. So as a region vice president, one of our main duties is to plan and host the regional leadership conference at our schools. So there are 7 regional conferences that go on in the state of Wisconsin, and each region vice president hosts that at their school, which is a pretty fun thing to do. So that takes up a majority of our time, is to finding events and people to have judge and time and do all the activities within the regionals. Some other things that we do in general are developing and presenting workshops. So we actually just did workshops at the Wisconsin Fall Leadership Conference, if you attended that. And we also plan a few throughout the year, like at the Fall Leadership Lab and other activities. And then also in general, we just provide support for members of our region, and we answer any questions that they have and kind of communicate with them as a whole.
On a weekly basis, I think a lot of what we do is connecting with entertainers and people who are hosting workshops and keynote speakers for RLC. We do a lot of reaching out to judges and timers, like Paige was saying. We do a lot of administrative work too. That includes like organizing, filing, making room signs, maps of the school, making sure you have like administrative permission to do certain things at the event. And then completing program of work assignments. And again, like I know at least, I'm sure the other regional vice presidents do as well. I have a time set up throughout my school day. So I have a period that's dedicated just to RLC planning. And my school's been super accommodating about that. And they've been really good about making sure I have time to do it. And they set it up as an independent business study. Again, I'm not sure how the other region VPs handle it, but I know in the past, some of them have like weekly or daily lunch meetings with their advisors. So there's definitely like time to get things done on a weekly basis. And then other than that, we just complete our program of work assignments, which can include like the WFEB articles or any initiatives we chose to work on over the summer.
All right, and for our monthly responsibilities, one of our main things that we do is update our regional website. So that is your website that is specific to your regional leadership conference. And you basically just update it each month with important deadlines and information to register for events, anything upcoming as you get closer to your conference. And then we also send out monthly emails or like regional leadership updates to your specific region advisors and local chapter officers. And that would also be reminders and resources and any information as you get closer to the conference. And then just in general, having good communication with the advisors and the officers and all your members in your region each month. And then the hours per week, we would say probably 3 to 5 hours a week during regular weeks. And 6 to 8 during busier weeks. And I know that for me personally, I am a senior, so I have a lab assist period, which is super helpful. That's like an hour and a half every other day. So that'd be about like 3 to 5 hours a week for me.
In general, as all officers, we all try to represent Wisconsin FBLA to the best of our abilities as a welcoming and professional organization. We also frequently communicate with each other regarding any updates and requests that we have, conversations that are just for fun. We also like to talk to each other when we have large events coming up. That way we make sure that everybody's on the same page with everything. And then we also respond to any communication regarding state activities that come from the chapters in Wisconsin. We also do requests for chapter visits, which means that we get to travel a lot to other schools around Wisconsin, and yeah.
All right, so in general, just for all officers for weekly responsibilities, like we talked about before, we review the accountability chart and the program of work responsibilities for any upcoming deadlines each month, and making those social media posts and the WFEB articles or reports. And then also for region VPs, sending out those regional emails, maintaining good communication. And then we also continue to promote national resources, whether that's like social media or just any new important information nationally.
On a monthly basis, all the officers try to be prepared and present for all meetings. So that doesn't just include like our monthly check-in where we do updates, but also like if we're giving chapter chats or if someone's hosting a meeting, we usually try to have all the officers attend so they can help out with that. And then before those monthly meetings, we complete monthly reports, which Greta and Alavia, the president and vice president, usually check in and like make sure we're up to date and if we need help with anything. And then we prepare workshops and rehearse scripts for upcoming conferences. Like Paige mentioned, we had FLL and then WFLC, and now we're all geared towards regionals and then state eventually.
So here we're going to discuss some frequently asked questions. So one that's commonly asked is, can still be a part of other clubs, organizations, and sports? And the answer is yes. I know last year I served as a region president, and I was also in approximately like 10 different other clubs and organizations. I wasn't involved in any sports, but I know that there were other officers that were definitely involved in several sports. And although it is hard to balance your time at at times, it's definitely doable, and you can learn different life skills by learning to balance that time. And so as long as you have like the dedication and the commitment to the organization, you can definitely manage all of that and still participate in other activities.
Okay, and the next question is, do I need any qualifications first? So for most all of the positions besides parliamentarian, you don't really need any qualifications. It's basically building your own resume so that when you are applying to be a state officer, you look like you know what FBLA is. And then when you give your speech, you're confident and you know that you can do the tasks. For parliamentarian, you have to take the parliamentary procedure test. So that requires studying for that. And yeah, basically, as long as you're in FBLA and excited about going out for being a state officer, then you can apply.
So a lot of people ask about the time and financial commitments. Again, I'll go into this saying like I was totally fresh to the position and I thought my responsibilities would be like exclusive to RLC, but they're not. Like all officers are expected to be present at the conferences, whether it's presenting online virtually, like with the chapter chats, or presenting in person at FLC and WFLC. And those things are actually really fun. Like it's a great way to connect with your state chapter and to connect with the other officers. So again, those are great opportunities. But in terms of time, like, yeah, you'll miss a couple school days, but I mean, who's going to complain about that? And you'll get to travel for those. So really your financial commitments come down to like paying for meals out when you're traveling. I'm sure most of your schools will cover the transportation costs and the rooming costs. And then you do have to pay for your blazer, like your uniform and all the accessories that go with that. But in terms of time, it's really just like what we mentioned before, like keeping track of your own responsibilities on a weekly and monthly basis, and then any additional travel to conferences.
The State Officer Candidate Guide is perfect to help you understand your specific roles or responsibilities more in depth, and it can also guide you through the specific application and campaigning process. Throughout my whole campaign process, I constantly reached out to Justin, and he was such a wonderful resource. So I do advise all of you or all potential candidates to contact us with any questions you may have regarding our positions via email.
Great. Well, we did want to keep that short for you all and just give you a quick overview of some of the things that we do throughout our term in our positions. I hope that this helps some of you in your process in the hopes that you are all applying to become a state officer next year, because I don't think any of us could echo it enough that this has been one of the most rewarding experiences of our lives. Truly unlike any other. Amazing. Like a lot of the officers said, it's a little open-ended when you're going into your position. So if there are things that you're passionate about in FBLA that you want to push further out for our members or introduce to our members, this is one of the best ways that you can get involved with FBLA and take on more of those responsibilities and take on a stronger role in your community and in our state chapter. So I do encourage you all to look through that State Officer Candidate Guide. It is going to be like your gospel. It's got everything you need to know throughout this process. And again, you can always contact any of us. Our contact information is also listed on our website, wisconsinfbla.org. So please refer to that. And other than that, we want to open it up to questions for tonight. And if you don't have any, feel free to hop off this call and have a great rest of your night.
I would say for me, the hardest part of running for reporter was putting together my speech for state, because that was basically all the weight on my shoulders about if I would get the position or not. The worksheets you can handle, and it takes quite a bit of time, but it's not a big deal. Making sure that your speech is good and you sound confident, that's the hardest part.
For me, I think the hardest part for running for office was trying to understand exactly what my position entailed, because I looked at the campaign guide like consistently with my advisor and like my whole chapter, but I still was unsure about what exactly my role would be. And like as the years go on, or as the months go on, you learn eventually what each role is about, and you can always reach out to like our state advisor if you have any specific questions regarding an officer position.
I think that's right on, Olavia. I truly like I don't know if any of it is necessarily so easy. Like it's a big thing. I had older sisters that were state officers, and so that gave me a little bit of like a okay, I have someone to go to kind of thing like that. But there's so much that you don't know, and I think that's what makes it really scary. It's just like the not knowing. It's a new experience, but we can all assure you that it's completely rewarding, and Wisconsin FBLA's got an amazing state advisor and amazing advisors at the state level that are so unbelievably supportive. So, if you make it through to your position, in that position, you're going to feel a lot of support, and it should not ever feel so overwhelming. It should feel rewarding.
Kind of to add on to that, Greta, I was going to say that the hardest part of the process for me was just knowing where to begin. They give you a lot of information on the website, but it's really hard kind of knowing what your first step should be. So Greta was in my position last year, so I was fortunately able to reach out to her, and I sent her like 3 huge paragraphs of questions, and she responded to each and every single one of them. So if you guys have any questions after this call, if you think of anything, please feel free to let any one of us know. We would love to answer your questions.
For me, my campaign, I started planning right away when applications came out. So like end of November, beginning of December, and then up until state, which was in March. So it doesn't like if you start early, your planning sessions with your advisor, it shouldn't take that long, and it isn't too late to start now. Even if you like started maybe a month or two after, maybe in January, it still wouldn't be too late. You still have time as long as you have a certain plan and objectives that you want to like show in your speech, and like what you want to bring out while campaigning. It's all fine.
I'll add
Yeah,
on to that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
you can go. It's okay.
Okay. No, so from the region vice president position, for sure, like I mentioned this earlier, I didn't know about the position until like my advisor approached me and he said, hey, no one else is running for this position. Is this something you'd be interested in? And I just like immediately blindly agreed. I was like, yeah, I love FBLA. I'll do it. And for sure, like I applied later than I think most people start, but even still, like Sydney was saying earlier, the physical application, like the worksheets you have to fill out, don't take that much time. The campaign process is really just about like if you make a brochure that kind of explains your key points, you can do that in like under a week. That's not super detail oriented, or sorry, it's not super like labor intensive. And then again, like Sydney said, for sure, it's more about like how you deliver your speech and making sure you come across as confident, which really like that time frame. I don't think you need a ton of time to do that if you're super busy. So
Yeah, and going off of that, I was very late in the game to decide that I wanted to be a state officer. It was November at the National Fall Leadership Conference when I first thought about it. And it was Thanksgiving break when I decided I actually wanted to run. So my campaign process started probably a month before state, because that's just like, I was taking college classes, I was busy. And so I decided to push that off a little bit, because I knew if I sat down and had the time and scheduled out time to make a campaign, I could do it. It's basically just whatever you think and however long you think it'll take. And also answering Ryan's question, All of the information about worksheets and stuff like that should be found on the Wisconsin FBLA state page. You can look up wifbla.org. Also, the WFEB of November should be coming out soon, and there's more information about that on there.
I know the region vice president, the worksheets, those are due December 9th, and I believe the exact 5 ones are due the January 15th. I'm like 98% sure those are the dates. Oh, 13th, okay.
Perfect. I'm gonna add one more thing onto how long it took to make a campaign, and I'm gonna pass it off to Paige to answer Ezra's question from earlier. But I do want to mention, I think one of the big things to note about your respective campaigns are going to be your platform. So the campaign window is exclusively SLC, so like no social media, things like that beforehand. You should take note of that. But a big part of your campaign should not only be your qualifications, but what it is you're going to do with your position for the members. So a lot of us talked about how open-ended it was. For me, I took into account things like mental health and bringing awareness to inclusivity. And so I had to craft specific ways that I was going to accomplish that. So for me, it was monthly emails with an inclusivity minute and ensuring that we had workshops touching on mental wellness. Other things, for example, Coco mentioned she was pretty fresh to this process. And one of her things was she wanted to make sure that other people that were interested in the position had a little more information going into stuff. So tonight's meeting is coming to you from one of Coco's initiatives to provide more information to prospective state officer applicants, things like that. So your campaign platform may be a big chunk of your campaign that you should be looking to think about ahead of time. You may have to workshop quite a bit with your family members, friends, and advisors about what kind of things they might be looking for out of FBLA, but that's something to consider, that should be specific and achievable and definitely worth talking about in your campaign speech. So I'll go ahead and pass it off now to Paige.
To circle back to Ezra's question about our schedule at SLC and other conferences, coming from the Fall Leadership Lab and the Wisconsin Fall Leadership Conference, we have a lot of time that is spent doing our officer duties, but we also have time to spend with our chapters and doing the activities that that conference has for us. At WFLC, we had workshops that we hosted, and there were 3 sessions of 30 minutes. So we had about the hour and a half chunk that we actually presented material to the attendees. We also have meetings beforehand and afterhand of all of the conferences. And then we also do the introductory messages and the ending messages at the end of each conference to kind of wrap it all up. So if you attended either of those conferences, either WFLC or FLL, you can kind of see how we do our sessions at the end and the beginning when we do introductions and conclusions. But yeah, it's a lot of split time between spending time with your chapter and participating in the activities and then doing your jobs as a state officer. And then I'll pass it to Greta to talk about the State Leadership Conference.
Yeah, so when it comes to State Leadership Conference, in terms of requirements for engagements as a state officer there, Natalie can speak on this too a little bit. We did have a good chunk of our time spent in rehearsals and things like that for our big grand sessions. You know, we had the big award ceremony and our general sessions, executive board meetings, such that took a little bit of rehearsal time. But other than that, they did keep it a little open-ended for us last year as state officers because you don't know when everyone's competing and things like that. If you're for sure not competing, there may be a chance that you have a workshop. Otherwise, you know, Alabia will be heading up the future fair, and part of parliamentarians' duties are also there to greet and help facilitate some of the things going on at SLC with future fair and things like that. So it may depend on your position a little bit, but that's normally your time at SLC is split between rehearsals and sessions, and also you get some time just to set up for your own competition and attend some of those workshops and things like that, and like a more member-based side of it.
For campaign merchandise and everything, I talked to my advisor and we set up like a budget of how much we were going to spend and what we were specifically going to spend it on. Like for my campaign, I know that we created like face posters, 3 of those, a bunch of buttons and chapter shirts to represent my campaign. So it's all about just talking to your advisor and setting aside how much you want to spend on what exactly.
Yeah, we can't confirm that it's going to be the exact same experience for all of you. It depends on what your local chapter is like, and your relationship with your advisor of things like that. I know my local chapter and advisor were very supportive in that member. So my local chapter helped to fund some of those materials. I just had some posters and things like that. You should note that all campaign materials can only be your campaign brochure, which is submitted ahead of time to the state office so that they can pre-approve that, and a specific number of copies that you create will be distributed to members at the start of the conference. And your local chapter is welcome to have stickers on them or hold posters and things like that, but nothing else can be handed out to the members. Buttons, stickers, anything like that. Nothing outside of the brochures that you send in ahead of time to the state office should be or can be distributed to any of the members throughout campaigning.
All right, so for Ryan's question, he said, as a regional VP, what do you do leading up to the regional conferences? As a region VP, you actually get like this big checklist that tells you everything you have to do for regionals. So this could be like getting speakers, getting your breakfast and lunch booked, getting your officers, like your local chapter officers, to help you set up things, making sure you know which rooms you're using, and also just working weekly with your advisor to set everything up for regionals and make sure you have good contacts for all of your speakers coming and the people that will be helping you, like judges too.
Great. Well, if you don't have any other questions for the night, thank you all so much for coming, and you are welcome to hop off the call at your leisure. Otherwise, again, all of our contact information is on wifbla.org, so please feel free to reach out to any of us. We are so happy to answer any and all of your questions about our positions and things of that nature. Again, we said it's been a really rewarding experience for us all, so we're always happy to share with other people. So if you have any questions and things like that throughout this process, please feel free to contact us.